This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the Antoine Dupont of website builders.
Rugby's 2023 has been something else. Feeling more like a grand season finale for all things union and a mere incident-packed year, 2023 has given us an unprecedented amount. Good, grievous, gloomy, glorious, green, gold, goofy, gorgeous, grand, great, giddy, gallant, and everywhere in between. All-time highs in sport, shaking lows, shaking hands and sweeping the sheds together in one year that simply wouldn't quit. And so, in order to look back on the biggest, best, loudest, lowest, silliest, smallest, Frenchest, funniest, daftest, deftest, most moving and masterful moments from the game this year, the things that made us laugh, scream, shout, and say, most of all,
extraordinaire.
Thank you, Lacanio. It's time for this. It's the 206 Rugby Moments of the year being 2023. And we'll start big. A moment that was 16 years in the making as a glorious line-out move gets Portugal's exceptional flanker, Nicolas Martins, over the line for Os Lobos' first World Cup try in over a decade. Something their huge travelling support loved. Though we didn't need to wait so long again for this. Mac Hansen slipping up on live TV.
I haven't played at Murrayfield yet, so fingers crossed I can make that. Oh, fuck. Oh, pardon. I can make that.
Or, indeed, this. Bryn Gatlin with perhaps the kind of antics that drove his dad back to the land of our fathers.
Oh, shit.
And how about this insane, spectacular show of skill and accuracy from La Rochelle's Swiss international, Julie Hardin? We have another moment of unreal skill from Japan League One with this mental finish. Look at it. And something perhaps less subtle here. Who needs tactics when you have a Parisi? And following the try, a hell of a celebration here from Fiji's Aroni Maui, marking Duncan Taylor's winner against the Ospreys, whilst Harry Hill's probably preparing to send 250 quid to whoever captured the aftermath of this Jimmy Gop of Touchfinder on video. We have Joe Goodchild's unbelievable finish to win the Welsh Cup final in the dying minutes of the game earlier this year. A slice of fried gold here from Wallaby lock Nick Frost as he shows unreal wheels to run in from long range. But we get a breakfast better than fried here from US Eagle James Hinterbrand, who prepares a yummy meal, feeding his opponent some tasty grass at the bottom of a rug. At 196, dog on the pitch! At 195, we have this kid's phenomenal pass as Wales took on Georgia in the World Cup. International caps definitely beckon for this kid. Here's Northampton attack coach Sam Vesti playing VR cricket. Whilst right across the world, we had some incredible scenes as Bok winger Makazole Mapimpi arrives back at his local supermarket just days after receiving his second World Cup winners' medal. At 194, here's the best mascot in the game, Argentina's Jaguardo, with a dog, possibly, but probably not celebrating this. Up by 2 points against favourite South Africa at the Hong Kong Sevens. Clock in the red, and the Boks desperate to win the ball back to chase the winning try. Puma Otsuka uses his head to win the game. And the last play drama seemed contagious this year. An overtime try and conversion getting Ferndale RFC, a 5th Division Welsh Valleys club, into a cup final for the first time in their 141-year history, setting a date to play in the Principality Stadium later that month, creating unforgettable scenes for everyone involved in the club. Whilst we had some game here, shades of 2019 as Scotland under 20s came back from 31-3 down to lead England 36-31 at the start of the year, only to lose to a late try. Though not one as stylistically covered as this from commentator Alistair.
Playing with another advantage, Mitchell feeds it onwards, Proctor! Excuse my voice. We've got to work with that today, I'm afraid. And Saints have made it over the line.
Here's some utter filth from UJ Suteni to put La Rochelle into the Champions Cup final. And here's maybe the worst player of the match presentation of all time. Here's one that we should just file under the folder Just DuPont things. What an absurd, superhuman, hamster, monster, creature, ridiculous, mad, silly, wonderful rugby player he truly is. At 184, the moment Rob Carney's second cousin / President of the United States, Joe Biden, mixed up the New Zealand national rugby team and British soldiers from the Irish War of Independence.
This was given to me by one of these guys right here.
was a hell of a rugby player, and they beat the hell out of the black and tans. Oh, God, it was wonderful. But
at 183, it's a moment for this lady who saw Newcastle Falcons doing hill runs whilst out walking a dog and just decided to join in and do the full session because she's an utter icon of northeastern spirit. Here's a mad, wonderful try from the Japanese leagues that makes less and less sense the longer it goes on. I don't know how this is making less sense than it did a second ago, and yet it's going to, what a finish. This went on to be the match-winning try. This went on to decide the game. Here we have the moment that some dude playing low league rugby became possessed by the talent and spirit of Lacanio and pulled this shit. And then next, one of the year's biggest upsets, and maybe the biggest ever upset in women's sevens, as this try sees the largely professional stalwart Spain losing to Czechia in Olympic qualification. Teams that just 2 weeks earlier finished first and dead last, respectively, in European Cup competition. This is a huge moment here for Georgia's Akatabatsadze as he breaks Mamuka Gogodze's record to become Georgia's all-time highest record try-scoring man, whilst a different kind of celebration here as Damian Penno delivers the spirit of Clement Poitrino into the body of Rita Naulangu with his typical bullshit punchable cheek. And another dead ball blunder right here from the other side of the world. More like Bloden Barrett. Am I right? Shoot me in the face. No, don't do it, because next we have Dog on the Pitch! And even better, right? After this game, the Georgian Rugby Union went on to adopt the dog as a temporary under-20s mascot, bringing him down to their training sessions because he's such a good boy. At 175, a lovely moment after this local kid climbed a tree and sat up there for 18 minutes to watch Tonga play a few weeks earlier. Lock flanker Vaifafita tracked him down and gave him not just free tickets to the next game, but his match jersey and for some reason a shit ton of ice cream because he's just a good guy. Whilst here, Johnny May lives to regret challenging his boss to an aerial battle. And next, two poignant, important moments from the women's game. France's Jessie Tremoulier, World Player of the Decade, and a woman whose incredible goal-kicking accuracy of the boot, remarkable range, and positional and tactical excellence single-handedly changed women's Test rugby in the 2010s, advancing the game decades forwards by forcing other teams to match her kicking game, or at least learn to cover it, whilst also being an exceptional player with the ball in hand, capable of scoring try after try, an important moment after important moment, with unbelievable composure. She played her final game this year, a moment that's significant was fully understood and celebrated accordingly by the crowd present. Whilst down under, maybe the greatest ever Wallaroo bowed out. A fierce, uncompromising yet skillful, iconic warrior for Australian rugby who featured at 4 World Cups and 2 Olympics, winning gold in 2016. Shannon Parry let the emotion get to her for once as she left the field victorious. Player of the match, of course, in her final ever game. At 171, here's former France prop Pascal Andart, probably best remembered for punching someone in the face in the first ever World Cup final, winning 25 grand in a live telecontest during the World Cup. At 170, a brilliant try eventually finished by Steph Evans saw a depleted, unfavoured Scarlets team, who are so bad they're literally the Scarlets, defeat a Sharks team packed with basically the full Springbok 15 in one of the USC's greatest upsets to date. At 169.5, here's the beautiful moment Duan van der Merwe headed to Squarespace. It was an incredibly meaningful moment for Dewey, who had never made a website before, but over the course of just a few minutes with Squarespace's interface, he got the hang of it. The site's tutorials are so easy and cleanly laid out, and there's so many help options available, as well as external tutorials all around their website and social media channels, that in no time at all he was gliding right through, conjuring up new parts for his website and adding little new features like he'd been doing it his entire life, never feeling lost or overwhelmed for even half a second, making changes on the fly and altering the entire site to suit his new whims in moments and able to publish it whenever he saw fit, delaying or rushing things through. It was perfect, beautiful, and technically not on a list, but it could be on your list of the best moments of your year when you click the link in the description, which is right below, and use the offer code SquidgeRugby, right, important part of getting it on your list, to save yourself some money, there's the important part, and create your own beautiful website using Squarespace. Please do so. At 169, here's Benjamin Odepagetto going full Messi, Maradona, creating a try with a lovely through ball, only for Sasha Umganzulu to one-up him. A glorious bit of skill, securing himself a spectacular try. This is so good. At 168, January gave us a glorious weekend of European rugby as 23 of the 24 teams in the Champions Cup entered the final round of the pools, able to make the knockouts, with the highlights coming as Northampton Saints gave Munster a real run for their money at Thomond Park in a phenomenal game that came down to the wire, the very last play, leading to a lovely man of the match moment from Gavin Coombs here.
Gavin, congratulations.
Thanks. Do you want me to give this to Ty?
And the next day in Paris, a belter between Racing and Quins gave us one of the most frantic final 15s of the year. Quins coming back from 18 points down to get back within a point as a scrambling Parisian rabble coughed up 3 yellow cards in the final 4 minutes before these two teams did roughly the same thing in spectacular fashion again all the way through in December, bookending the year with 2 brilliant games between 2 ramshackle sides. But on the complete opposite end, how's this for last minute composure? 2 points behind and the Welsh school's plate on the line. Dyfryn Taf School fullback Lennon Reynolds steps up at the National Stadium. But staying at the Mill, what a glorious day this was for Haverfordwest ladies. 1 year ago, the club almost folded. Short players, short funding, short opportunity. But after fighting to just keep their club going, the team somehow fought even harder now on the pitch. A player of the match performance from Jana Newman, sister of Wales regular Lisa, capped off an incredible team performance to win on the telly in the world's greatest stadium from the club's lowest low a year earlier to their highest high in just 12 months. However, perfectly somewhere in the middle is this wonderful moment caught on camera as the world's 2 most famous players, Antoine Dupont and Siya Kolisist, make small talk about the weather.
It's cold today.
Yeah, I know, but it's good.
We lose 10 degrees in 3 days.
I know, in one day it went down like that.
How about this fantastic late drop goal to win the Italian league? Or this, Kosovo earlier this month defeating Montenegro to register their first ever men's test match win. At 162, we have this utterly absurd try from MLR champions to be my beloved, the glorious New England Free Jacks. What an absolutely phenomenal score this is. But better still, we have this brilliant spectator try by Stephen Kitchoff and Joseph Dweber. At 160, a moment for the history books as Georgia defeated England for the first time ever at any level ever. Their under-20s team tearing it up, no doubt inspired by their new doggy mascot, to a hell of a win. Now, 2023 was a World Cup year, not just in men's 15s, but this summer also saw the first deaf World Cup in 5 years after the pandemic pushed it back. And it was arguably the greatest to date. Men's and women's running alongside each other and more teams than ever participating in both tourneys. And yet, only one team in either one mattered. Wales emerged double world champions, the men seeing off all comers and the women proving perhaps the most dominant side any variation of the Rugby World Cup has ever seen, not conceding a single point over the entire tournament as they ran rampant, defeating Australia 36-0 in the final. For all the shit the W quite rightly get, the platform support and championing they're giving the deaf team should be an example to the world, because these two teams are incredible and deserve all the support they get. At 158, a huge moment in Super Rugby as the Fijian Drua beat billion-time champions, the Crusaders, a day that fired up an incredible year for Fijian Rugby that kickstarted it all. At 157, his Damien Penner being utterly insufferable, as captured by roommate and fellow winger Ethan DeMortier.
Riding on the skyline, all we had is gone now. Said them I was happy, and my heart is broken. So open, tell me what I do would be impossible.
At 156, one of the most controversial rugby moments of 2023, the Ardie Surveyor throat slit. A heat of the battle confrontation moment. The saw Surveyor banned and the rebels and referees wet their pants. Instantly iconic and destined to be up there on an Andrew Ford compilation video for decades to come. At 155, Bayonne this year qualified for the Champions Cup for the first time in their history. Decades of being a yo-yo club subsided for one really solid season, giving them a chance at this, a dream game against Munster at Thomond Park, possibly the greatest cathedral of pool stage European rugby out there anywhere in the world. A game where Munster got ahead early, but the Basque Basement Boys fought back for their big day. Scenes the club had never seen the like of before as they snuck a draw late on in one of rugby's proudest home grounds. At 154, here's the best worst lineup of the year. 153, an utterly genius set move in junior rugby, sneaky, composed, deceptive, and are we completely sure Joe Schmidt didn't sneak into run a session or two of this lot? At 152, the moment John Cena followed Glasgow Warriors on Twitter, but sticking to Elon Musk's rancid health site, a glorious moment as journalist Peter Jackson's transfer rumour about Gareth Anscombe is rebutted by Anscombe himself, only for Jackson to double down and claim he knows more about Gareth Anscombe than Gareth Anscombe himself. All sources, however, will confirm what your eyes are seeing here. 12 years after his last game of Super Rugby, 12 years after his international retirement, 40-year-old tighthead and full-time baller John Afoa ran out to make his debut for the Crusaders and become the oldest Super Rugby player ever, and it goes without saying, the oldest debutant the pro game's ever seen. What a man. Speaking of what a man, here's a brilliant try by Chile flanker Raimundo Martinez, who sent this to me for consideration himself, so of course he gets on the list. We had a dramatic finale in France's Elite Feminine 1 as Bordeaux won their first ever title. And how's this for a dramatic finish? China in line for an enormous upset win against Japan and only needing to kick the ball out. Phew. Ibn Etzebeth had 2 firsts this year, here his first ever dummy kick I presume, and then his acting debut here in a South African soap opera.
Jy nou blik sê Costa.
Wat het ek gesê?
Ferreira.
Nee, ek was 'n Ferreira en toe het ek getrou met
Try met 'n Costa ondanks.
Whilst here's Noah Lolaseo, left out the Wallaby squad for young whippersnapper Carter Gordon, basically unheard of, responding in the only way a cocksure young Aussie 10 knows how. One of the most pro de dum moments ever here as Oyano break the trophy mere minutes after receiving it. There's a huge upset in the W15 and a rare moment of Canadian joy this year as the Canucks produce an incredible performance to crack open France. Captain Sophie de Goody imperious as always as the whole team went up gear after gear and put together an unforgettable result. And speaking of unforgettable, here's the final play, right, of the under-18s mixed touch European Championships with the scores tied. Let's have a look at this.
Oh, the feet by Gethin O'Callaghan. Oh! Gives a punt. Oh, my word!
An incredible play.
What a
and Wales
finish.
secured the win.
Gethin O'Callaghan, Sonny Greenman, take a bow.
Here's an incredible needle threading from former Chief schoolboy Tyree Norman Bell and brother of England Sevens Isler. A hell of a result here as the Bulls, desperate for a result to make the playoffs, hand lengths to their biggest ever loss, 60 points shipped in a result you simply never see. Here's a proper length of the field effort started by Argentina prop Thomas Gaggio for Benetton. It's a glorious thing, a beautiful sight, a wonderful, wonderful thing. This is another beautiful score by the Black Ferns that simply keeps getting better the longer it goes on. It's huge and just keeps getting bigger, better, with more packed with absurd skill and continues playing. Everything that continues going just keeps getting better and better. It's honestly unbelievable just how much goes on in this try. Jeez. Here's some lovely halftime entertainment from Racing 92. While this was almost a hell of a day for Gloucester, struggling in the league and glad the miracle shot at La Rochelle in Europe, they almost pulled it off, pushing them all the way thanks largely to this. A finish by 31-year-old local boy lock, Freddie Clark, that any world-class Samoan winger would be proud of. And speaking world-class wingers, a moment here to sum up the lifetime of Chris Ashton, becoming the first man to ever score 100 Premiership tries just 2 games before he retires, underlining his absurd career-long strike rate with a bunch in this final run-out. And whilst there wasn't 100 tries here, it came close, as Wits College came back from 30-0 down in the Varsity Cup to produce this overtime winning try. What a result. And sticking to youth rugby for a moment, this is heartening and frightening in equal measure as a remarkable France under-20s team tore up the Junior World Cup, winning the competition at a canter for the 3rd time in a row, introducing our new overlords as they smashed past 50 in the bloody gosh darn final, with a bunch of the best players missing because they're training with a full France team. Here's the moment during a gig in France. Big Flo and Ollie brought out an incredible special guest. But whilst bloody Antoine Dupont, whoever that is, was busy gallivanting about on a bloody music stage, one young lad was working hard and wowing on the actual pitch. In one of the biggest games of the year, Pontclandon Primary School versus the Modern Church of Wales School at the Principality Stadium, with wonderful commentary from Wyn Griffith. Centre Archie Thacker was a standout, as well as hat-trick hero Liam James, but this game gave us maybe the best solo performance at the Principality Stadium this year, as 10-year-old fly half Reem Tucker pulled the gosh darn strings. So often happy to just give the early unselfish pass to get the ball into space rather than trying to do too much himself, as is often prominent at this level. Pretty much every try Ponty scored came from Tucker delivering lovely, simple balls to shift the point of the attack, seeing the game in slow motion like George Ford if he still collected Pokemon cards, or putting in touches like this lovely, outstanding left peg kick into space. Here, to just pick up one moment from a glorious performance, Tucker starts really flat to the line and just takes one tiny little step to engage the defender in front of him. Both Jones, Thacker and this unnamed number 4 run fantastic lines to keep the defence narrow, and Tucker then throws a lovely miss pass to put Luke Llewellyn in for the try. Modern Church gave them a really good game, but Pontclandon played some really, really entertaining rugby and upheld their status as a team to be feared by everyone, including the All Blacks. Back in senior rugby, boring old senior rugby, this is a good celebration, whilst this is perhaps a much more cruel finish for Australia's Henry Hutchinson. The year in Australian rugby pretty much summed up in one visual metaphor. Well, here's 2 moments that meant the world. The Springboks, over their 2 World Cup winning campaigns, had never conceded more than 2 tries in a single game. Until here. Up steps pride of Coventry, a man toiling away in English lower divisions, given the chance of a lifetime to play for his country, Pat Pellegrini, to produce a glorious solo score and break South Africa's third try streak. Whilst this was even bigger, this was incredible. This January, Kate Williams, born in Swansea, raised in New Zealand as a proud Welsh woman, had been playing in the Kiwi top division, but decided to chase her childhood dream of pulling on the red jersey and winning a cap for Wales. She moved to Cymru on her own, the other side of the world, without a contract, without a job, without her family, without anything but a dream.
What's that? Oh!
Whose coat is that jacket?
My coat!
But a few months later, she got the call. She got the nod. She was put on the bench to play Ireland. She got that jersey, and this happened. Now, here's another name to remember. Tatsuki Onoe, 17-year-old Japanese age grade sensation who earlier this year surely set a new record as he hit 5 50-22s in a single game. Here's an absolute monster of a scrum by Leicester Tigers, the ABC club pushing Newcastle into Row Z, but on the opposite end of the sport spectrum, a classic who did it better. 2 moments for the price of 1. 2 moments that I think qualify as a pretty decent first touch, you could say. Please text the number on screen now with which one you think is better for the chance to win Pascal on darts another 25k. And with that glorious Punchy Man's second mention, I think it's time to fall head first, as we must, as though we've just been nutted on the bonce, into the pro day. Beginning with this try, one of the most pro day moments ever seen. Or how about this genuinely superb streaker?
Et pour l'instant, il a que la serviette de Jimmy Yobo. Il vient nettoyer le crampon de Albert Valentin. Oh, il a un caleçon sous la serviette, c'est un tricheur. Oh, le petit joueur, le raffut à la sécurité, c'est bien fait. Il garde la serviette, le pas de loi peut-être, oh, l'énorme raffut. Il vient d'allonger, la sécurité lui ramasse la casquette. Mais c'est complètement dingue ce qui s'est passé sur la pelouse de Jean-Alric. Il se rapproche d'un but, le deuxième raffut. Il est énorme, faites-le signer de suite à ce garçon.
Il est en rouge et blanc en plus. Il est en rouge et blanc.
Il est en rouge et blanc, oui, le type.
Or how about this unique intercept score by Bezier? All right here, making a mark 4 minutes into the first game of the season. The Pro Day does first red card of the year, just 4 minutes into the season. Just a beautiful moment of rugby values, proving the sport truly is different, proving it really can bring people together in a way that no other sport ever can. Thanks, Bill Beaumont. Just different. Something that is legitimately different, though, however, is this. Stan Sports throwing to the junior analysts.
With us throughout the broadcast, and we welcome in Connor on the right, Chris on the left. Chris, what are you seeing, buddy?
I just want to go back to the first try where number 6 stole the ball. I think he read the play really well, and his pace was astonishing.
That's a big word. Multiple syllables.
I'm going to write that one down for later.
Chris,
one more thing.
Yeah, make it quick because we're getting close to the try line.
Andy Muirhead, I think he's wearing headgear because he's trying to hide his hair extensions.
Yep, all right, I'll pass that on to him as well. Well done.
However, even they were stumped by what happens here as Antoine Dupont and or Blair Kinghorn somehow pop the ball in the air, the thing arriving flat in the hands. The players perhaps as stumped as England scrum half Alex Mitchell, who admitted this year, at 27 years of age, he only just found out that reindeers are real.
Did you know, by the way, that reindeers are real?
No.
Did you know that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought they were made up. Like it was like a Christmas creature. When have you ever seen a reindeer?
North Pole.
You go all the time, do you?
Here's a hell of a passage from Scotland's game against the Box in W15-2. Here's a genius line-out move involving Faf de Klerk at his faffiest, and a huge moment as Argentina created history as they beat the All Blacks on their own patch to win the New Zealand Sevens for the first time ever. All part of a historic year for the Puma Sevens programme, finishing second in the World Series and winning the Twickenham Sevens for the first time ever as well. In fact, it was a brilliant year for South American rugby all round as Uruguay compounded their impressive World Cup with their best ever age grade result, defeating Scotland thanks in no small part to this.
With clearing Scotland's lines. Storace Fields. Big drop goal attempt coming here from Amarillo. Oh wow! That is a howitzer from the Uruguayan pivots.
Almost as big as Lyon versus Bordeaux on the final day of the top 14 regular season, as the TMO's Windows Vista crashed at half-time, leaving the referee unable to go upstairs for the entire second half in a bloody must-win French game. A late entry, it's Man in the Box conversion from this weekend just gone. Don't worry about the fact the audio sounds different. This is definitely not recorded later because we had a technical difficulty. Man in the Box incredible conversion to beat La Rochelle, European champions, reigning European champions in the last play of the game, last minute. Here's an incredible team try by Munster, which I'm going to need to talk for a little while longer so that you can see the full thing, because man alive, it's an incredible score that starts a long way out, includes a lot of different rugbies happening, and of course, who's going to pop up on the end of it? I bet you can predict this if you've seen Munster play at all in the last 3 or 4 years. It's going to be Tyg Byrne, isn't it? Oh look, it's Tyg Byrne. Who else could it possibly be? Gavin Coombs knows. And this is simply incredible. Here are the scenes at the Madagascar League final. 40,000 present to watch an absolute humdinger as Kosovar come from behind to get ahead before a 79th minute winning try from FTM sealing the game. And yet, it was probably only the second most remarkable moment of Madagascar rugby this year, as 20,000 people turned up to watch their women's team play on a Wednesday afternoon, 2 p.m, during working hours on a Wednesday afternoon. They love it in Madagascar, and we really need to be doing so much more to support them. At 105, let's enjoy this great moment with some of the best commentary of the year.
Het is Monster! Monster! Het is Monster! Monster van Vlieg! Het is een Superman! Het is een Superman! Nee, het is een Superman niet! Het is een Batman! Nee, het is niet Batman niet! Het is Spider-Man! Het is niet Spider-Man niet! Het is Monster! Wat de naam!
Here's Rob Kearney's face just getting away from him, just running away from him on live TV. An incredible maul in the Japanese league here that destroys the post, completely splinters them. And how's this for an anthem rendition from Wales's Fionn Lewis? At 101, Perpignan ran this pretty mental, bizarre, very deeply strange move to score this very unusual try. And how's this for an innovative set move?
Dis 'n interessante verdediging lyn wat hier nou gelê word. Letterlik in die linie gelê word, Alex, wat jy vir my daar wys.
Baie interessant. Maar dit lyk of dit kan werk, Simon.
Hier gaan Waterkloof. Dis steeds Waterkloof. Uit hulle gebied uit, 'n pragt 3.
At 99, here's Italy's Beatrice Rigoni holding a fish. At 98, here's a glorious length of field try from the Reds, all kick-started by a great run from his own try line by Harry Wilson, and it just gets better and better from there. What a moment for debate at 97 from the final moments of pool play in the European Cup this year. Edinburgh went into this game assuming a mere win over Saracens would be enough to guarantee them a home knockout game. And as they produced a brilliant performance to get ahead on the final whistle, they didn't realise that other results elsewhere had changed the entire picture. Edinburgh now needed to deny Saracens a losing bonus point as well to win by 8 points or more in order to get that home game, and unable to get that message onto the pitch despite having ball in possession. Scrum half Henry Purgos kicks the ball out for full time, handing their opposition the home game instead. Cue much confusion, mixed messages, and changing reactions by the second. Everyone unsure what just happened. A moment of great drama, debate, and screaming at the TV screen, particularly if you're Scottish. While at 96, these were the scenes as Zebre, Pro Rugby's most luckless team, won their first match in 19 months, downing the Sharks, every single player letting the frustration and celebration show. While at 95, let's all just let this one play and see if you can guess where it's going. In 2020, brothers Dan and Ben Wiggins got bored, and after a few Google searches and 2 speculative emails, the pair of total amateurs playing in the English 6th division discovered they were eligible for Denmark, and this year they made their debuts in Test Rugby as a halfback combo. At 93, here's perhaps the most damn big thing that's ever happened. Complaining to the referee, he then turns around and puts in an instant pinpoint cross kick. God damn that guy, I'm gonna miss him so much. And at 93, God, this is gorgeous. After a try-scoring winning performance against Leinster, Munster's Clodagh O'Halloran gathered her full team of around her and got down on one knee to propose to teammate Chloe Pearce. And the scenes from there were wonderful. And speaking of wonderful, here's another contender for Best Commentary of the Year on this score by Tommaso Menonfello that could be described no other way.
Does he have the pace? Yes, he does. And Tommaso Menonfello score. What is a highly suitable try of the day.
Another most highly suitable moment was this.
Will a Mr. Stuart Atkinson please report up to the country? We have had a call from a very distressed Mrs. Nicola Atkinson, who's been tracking me on my iPhone. She said, "You said you were going to John Lewis in Kingston." She is on her way now to come and pick you up and take you back.
Here's a result that you can understand without knowing the rules. Freshly promoted community club Caldy RFC, a side who climbed the pyramid, beat the until then undefeated Ealing Trailfinders, a team better funded than many top flight sides, desperate to burst into the Premiership on a historic day for a glorious old club. And a glorious day in a growing rivalry here as Australia versus Argentina gave us an incredible final 5 minutes. With Argentina looking to seal a huge victory away from home, up steps the Wallabies breakthrough star Mark Nwangari Tanase, running in a brilliant interception try to seemingly win the game with just minutes on the clock, only for Argentina to then win the ball back and work their way up to the try line. Their own breakthrough star, Juan Martín Gonzalez, sneaking over the line in the final play to win the game. A moment of massive boot and arguably even bigger balls here. Having targeted this game for 4 years, Uruguay took Italy almost all the way, getting themselves a try ahead with a minute left in the half, only for fly half Felipe Esteveri, who had a superb World Cup for my money, pulling one of the biggest dick plays of the entire World Cup, a brilliant spontaneous snap drop goal to put Los Terras 10 up at half-time in a result few saw coming, but probably more should have. Here's the bizarre moment as lock and halfbacks, Bota and Dusan, get their jerseys mixed up and have to change them on the pitch, doing, much to the crowd's enjoyment, whilst let's just say yes to this try.
Verby 'n tweede man, goeie aanval hier is die heel agter by die bal nou nie aan kry, hy gaan teen die lyn af, hy sit hom weer op die voet, sy regtervleuel wat hom agterna sit, hy gooi hom weer weg na die heel agter toe. Is 'n uitstekende 3 wat gedruk word hier deur Wittenberg.
Here's Antoine Dupont and Yoann Uge playing table football on primetime French TV, because why not? And how's this for an upset? Uganda pulled off one of the biggest wins in their history, defeating a Kenyan side who made the final round of World Cup qualification last year, 21-20 in front of a bumper crowd. African rugby outside the Springboks has been underfunded, undersupported, underdiscussed for such a long time. Results like this just show what is possible if we all pay more attention and more money is paid towards them. Meanwhile, the past and present of Italian rugby presented themselves here. The curtain finally came down this year on Sergio Parise's glittering, seemingly endless 20-year rugby career, with this being the very fitting final touch as Sergio signed off once and for all. Meanwhile, however, if the under-20s had a very fine leader of their own, presenting himself, maybe to take over.
I'm very proud of my lads. They're doing very good. And apart from the result, I'm very proud. We are sending a big message to the world rugby that we are coming for all of you people. We have been working out, eating shit a lot for the past years, and now the results are starting to come in. It's just the beginning of a long process, but one day we can compete with all international team. I'm very proud of my guys, apart from the result, very hard game, very hard miles, but at the end, wins who is the best. I'm really proud of being part of all these, being proud of the national team, and I'm very happy apart from the result, and we just keep going. We have another match, we have other match, we have a World Cup coming, and we are still hot.
David Odiase, a supreme leader who excelled for the team, and even more so here, after a heartbreaking last-minute try denied his team a win over France in the Six Nations, but it got even better that summer, as Italy under-20 defeated South Africa in South Africa for the first time ever, a statement win for a phenomenal group of youngsters, inspired by this remarkable pre-match speech from Odiase himself.
Mai più mancheranno di rispetto al nostro compagno, mai più dubiteranno di noi, mai più dubiteranno di Giovanni, mai più dubitare di te, perché noi siamo una famiglia. Io combatto per te, combatto per la tua famiglia e tu combatti per la mia. Combatto per te.
Next up, dog on the pitch! Dog on the pitch, dog on the pitch. And for good reason, as MLR introduced the Dog Bowl, a prize received by the winner of the annual game between the Chicago Hounds and the Dallas Jackals. And to mark the occasion, they encouraged as many supporters as possible to bring their dogs to games, including bringing one onto the pitch to present the match ball. It's the best game in rugby. It's the best one. At 78, Uruguay and Namibia from the 2023 Rugby World Cup. A fantastic game that was huge for both sides. Namibia started with a flurry, scoring 2 tries to give themselves the kind of lead they've genuinely never seen in a Rugby World Cup match before, but Uruguay fought back. Just their 3rd ever World Cup win, and their first as favourites, thanks in no small part to DuPont Jr., Santiago Arata, producing plenty of magic as Uruguay came good, but Namibia still pulled off a performance to be really proud of. A record points total for a World Cup game for them, and a fitting tribute paid to retiring legends Chewy Uanivi and TJ Van Leeuw. The final day of the Six Nations usually throws up a few shocks, and this came close. Italy on the try line, looking for a winning score against Scotland, desperate for a repeat of 2015, only for a controversial knock-on to be spotted by the referee, but not by any of the Italians, or certainly any of the Italian fans watching. It hands Scotland the ball, the scrum, and the chance to put the ball out for full... they decided to just do that, give it to Duan van der Merwe, which works. Blair Kinghorn running in for a worldie in a near escape. And yet, he was, from a Scottish perspective, worn up by this. Fran McGee, one of the breakthrough stars of 2023, had waited first few caps to get even an inch off space. But then when it came, mercy me, an utterly spectacular solo try to secure Scotland the first of 2 consecutive wins after an 18-game losing streak. At 75, cue Eddie Jones in a press conference with a hat that, even by his standards, was unforgettable.
I've got to wash myself off, boys. Got to wash myself off because it's just sticking to me. Thanks for the worst press conference I've ever had in World Rugby. Worst press conference. Well done, boys. That is the worst I've ever seen.
Can we have one?
Worst I've ever seen.
At 74, the old 50-man maul tactic gets taken to its logical extreme here.
Go! 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 Why? Oh, it's lovely. Yes!
Whilst the silliness continued as one of the game's all-time greats, Alan Wynne-Jones, wound down his career this year. Final games for Wales, the Ospreys and Toulon all took place this year, but the real headline came as he starred in 3 games for the Barbarians. Alan Wynne has been a god of this game, a fired-up, stony-faced, uber-competitive legend who outworked everyone he's ever faced, but those 3 games saw him have fun with this silly little sport for the first time ever. Conversion attempt against the World 15. Against his old side Swansea, he swapped jerseys at half-time and ran out for the opposition instead. And then in his grand farewell game against Wales itself, not only did he score the most popular try Cymru have ever conceded at home, but went on to attempt taking the restart as well. A bonus mention to Lee Halfpenny, another legend of the Welsh game, for his emotional sign-off in the same match. A standing ovation and plenty of tears for a man who meant the world to Wales. At 72, you are not prepared to hear Bristol prop Jan Thomas' singing voice here.
I've got sunshine on a cloudy day. When it's cold outside, I've got the month for me. Well, I guess you say what can make me feel this way, my girl. Talking about my girl.
But at 71, you probably are going to get exactly what you expect when you hear Italy's Monty Ioane, Nicola Canone and Seb Negri sing.
Save tonight, fight to break up, dawn come tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll be gone, save when the scent of her lingers and temptation strong, cold, cold heart. How could this be? You're not here with me. Never say goodbye. Someone tell the why.
At 70, second time does it. This sort of thing I'm not sure I'd ever seen happen before in my life, and then happens twice in the same year because rugby. At 69, the very nice moment that a dickhead makes a 1 in a million shot. At 68, it may be the best Welsh performance in a decade. Leon turned red as Wales crushed Australia into a fine paste. Gareth Anscombe delivering the kind of show he'd dreamt of during his injury hell for a few years ago. Just a majestic day to be from the old land of our fathers. But on the green and gold end, this was the lowest, shittest night in living memory for Wallaby rugby, potentially in its entire history. Eddie Jones with his head in his hands and players in tears as the full-time whistle goes. Out in the groups for the first time ever. Here's some shithousery gone wrong. Noting Toulouse flanker Jack Willis is still putting his boots back on. La Rochelle fire the restart straight at him, expecting him to fumble it with his boots between his fingers, only for him to throw them to one side and take it cleanly, even making meterage in the carry in his socks. Another thing that shouldn't simply be possible here, as Fakatava's absurd lock try for Japan during their crazy back and forth game against Argentina was such a spectacular moment. And whilst this might be a less eye-catching try, it's one that means all the more, as Keith Earls, the man himself, scores on his 100th game for Ireland. The penultimate match of a career that's been defined more by character than talent. A man who's been upfront about his mental health struggles and found countless ways to just keep going, be it on or off the pitch, getting a moment to sum up his achievements before retiring on his own terms, rather than giving in to the forces that faced him his entire life. But 100 games... that's nothing. This is Robin Tremlett of Broad Plain RFC in Bristol, who this April played his 1000th senior game for the club, having joined them at age 12. And of course, if asked if he had any plans to retire, to call it a day, Tremlett said he would just think about that once he hits 110. What a guy. Notable first, however, at 63. Having played in 4 World Cups and captained the team for a decade, Romeo Gonteniec retired in 2007 as a legend of Romanian rugby, arguably one of the legends of Romanian rugby, one of their greatest players ever. And this year, his legacy continued as his son Taylor ran out in the famous yellow strip at his first Rugby World Cup. If you include Romeo's 5th campaign as a coach, this continues a streak. There have been more Rugby World Cups with a Gonteniec than without. Just a brilliant moment to see him make the plane and play. At 62, here's England defence coach Kevin Sinfield winning 50 quid.
I'll give you £50 cash.
Don't bet, mate.
Do you not?
Don't bet, no.
It's a free bet.
I'll have a go. Free bet. Back in the day, that's how we used to do it. Off sand.
Really?
Yeah. You remember it, T, don't you?
Yeah, sand.
Off sand.
Oh!
Now, maybe the peak moment of Justin Tipperick ever, as the king of, forwards can do that, combines with Keelan Giles to create and finish one of the best tries of the year, an already iconic image, and another one at 60, as Benjamin Urja and Ronan O'Gara square up on the sidelines, a player and a coach fighting. Only Ronan O'Gara. Whilst I think we just need a moment for Jersey Reds here. The club sadly folded a few months ago, but at least they went out on one of the proud old teams' highest highs, their biggest years ever, as in 2023 they pipped Ealing to win the championship, winning the whole deal above a team with a significantly greater budget, only to be denied access to the Premiership on ground spec terms. However, that wouldn't stop them beating Bath in the Premiership Cup, who are currently sat second in the Premiership table, wouldn't you know, just 2 weeks before they went under. You can't help but feel for the players, the staff, everyone involved. However, on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Paraguay. In recent years, South America Rugby have made huge investments in Paraguay, similar to with Chile in around 2018, and we saw the start of that here as their one pro club beat Super Rugby America finalist Selknam by a full 10 points this year. A huge moment for some really exciting Paraguayan talent who may yet regard this as the start of things to come as they look to kick on to the now expanded 2014 World Cup in a few years' time. At 57, here's Wales prop Corey Dominchowski stuck in the swing.
Stop! Mum, my back's hurting. I'll fucking stop recording it. Mum! Grace, come and help me, love. My back is fucking hurting, man.
And a very different front row reaction moment as Ryan Lonergan here goes up the jumper, I guess you could say. And at 55, the final of Japan Rugby League 1. A new Asian record crowd for a non-international match for bigger total attendance than any Nippon Baseball League match post-pandemic, and they witness history as major outsiders the Kubota Spears found themselves in possession with just seconds to go.
そして蹴り出すバーナード・ホーリー、今ホイッスルが鳴らされました。悲願達成です。クボタスピアーズ船橋東京ベイ、1978年同好会としてスタートしたクボタラグビー部、ついに日本一になりました。オレンジ軍団、オレンジの旋風が国立に吹き荒れます。
At 54, when referee Mathieu Reynal hobbled off injured in a key Champions Cup game between Exeter and the Bulls earlier this year, you felt it was big, significant. This never happens. Except it would happen again in October, with the canvas expanded as Jaco Peyper cracked his ankle during a World Cup quarter-final. Down injured and then ushered off, he was replaced swiftly by touch judge Matt Carley, and the game changed entirely. Both teams scrambled to readjust as the World Cup's ref most likely to reward an attack was replaced by the World Cup's ref most likely to reward a defence, changing the complexion of the match entirely. A chaotic, fascinating change that presented a very rare bit of exceptional circumstance the channel's usual ban on ref chat, as both sides had to adjust tactics to a new interpretation on the fly, a polar opposite style referee. Argentina adapting much faster and taking the game by the scruff of the neck. A bit earlier in that Rugby World Cup that happened this year, however, we had an incredible game between Georgia and Portugal. David Ninias-Vili was his electric best, ripping up Portugal early doors, only for Os Lobos to strike back. Rafael Storti and Jeromino Porteiro in particular on fire as they got Portugal back in the game, and then ahead, looking for their first ever World Cup win, only for a late moment of drama as Georgia equalised with 1 minute to go. You felt that was it. You felt that was done. Conversion was missed. It still wasn't over. The kickoff came. The penalty came. And the sheer drama built, with regular kicker Samuel Marquez off. Portugal handed the kick to outstanding fullback Nuno Sousa Guejas, biggest kick of his life. Sliding just wide, but enough regardless to secure a historic draw and win the heart of every neutral watching. At 52, here's a fight from the Italian league that resulted in, this is not an exaggeration, it's a genuine fact, 62 players getting cited. 62 players were cited for this fight, which that seems like a lot, but if you want to see a lot of people, just take a glance at southwest London this April as the Red Roses played France in the first ever standalone women's test at Twickenham. The whole day felt like a major celebration of how far women's rugby has come, everything it's achieved, but more importantly, everything it can be in the not too distant future. The most exciting possible statement for what it can become when a governing body properly invests and believes in the product on the field, and one worth more than £1 million of profit for the RFU. And it was a fantastic game to boot. The Red Roses initially rampant before Gabrielle Vernier went nuts and just spun her unreal form into a 33-point comeback. An incredible day, and one matched here by another Romanian rugby legend. Here we are, Florin Sărăgiu. Sărăgiu won his first cap for Romania in 2008 and quickly made a name for himself based on two things. One, fantastic scrum half play, and two, never hiding his emotions. Weeping his way through 2 World Cups, crying on the pitch in 4 out of 4 of Romania's games in 2015, and arriving at his third to play his 101st and final game for his country, and in a Romania side that had been up until then underperforming. Everything came up Sărăgiu. Like his tears during the anthem sprinkled some magic dust into the side. A maul spins, a chance opens, and through he goes. Few have ever deserved a moment like this more. The players loved it. He loved it. What a way to mark the end of his career. Though I do want to mention one player that didn't get a moment like that. Former Romania captain, an utter legend of the game, Mihai Macovei, missed the World Cup injured and was forced to retire earlier than he would have liked. And his bow, his retirement, feels a bit like the moment this list is really missing the most. Other than Derry Lake being named Foreign Secretary or something, that would have been nice. Or Wales win the World Cup, that would have been alright as well. Into the top 49! Yes, finally! And this year's MLR final was perhaps the league's best yet. A team squid rugby derby between the New England Free Jacks and the San Diego Legion. Ma Bloody Nonu, who yes, he's still playing, San Diego Legion side, getting themselves ahead before a late winner by Namibia's Leroux Milan, a man whose name every rugby values wanker knew for 24 hours and forgot promptly during the Rugby World Cup, secured a first title for the Boston-based Streamers. Ben Affleck no doubt dancing in the streets and Matt Damon celebrating one of the 2 titles that his teams won this year. At 49, the Seagull. 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 Chekhov's The Seagull. The Seagull. At 47, back to having a lot better than the final. Here's 2 coaches having an actual fight on the real pitch. This is 2 actual coaches just having a fight on the pitch. And 3 incredible results lined up next. First, nobody gave Uruguay a chance against France. And yet, that first Thursday of the World Cup gave us one of the best Tier 2 performances of the last few years. And arguably the best game Uruguay have ever played, even topping their performance against Fiji last time, as they were an error or 2 away from beating the host nation out of nowhere. Every player contributing and working their gosh darn little South American socks off, forcing errors and tackling with their whole hearts, whilst also scoring some absolutely scintillating, brilliant tries. It was one of the great losing efforts, maybe the best losing effort of this year. It wasn't quite to be, but for a brilliant moment, Los Terros were so almost on top of the entire world. And at 45, a day of conflicting interests at Twickenham as the Springboks lay down a World Cup marker as they handed the All Blacks their biggest ever loss, denying them an inch as New Zealand were left gagging for just a sympathy score as the Springbok machine marched on, but it didn't even compare to this. In ranking terms, the biggest upset in the history of women's rugby, as Brazil, who had never won a single women's test match in their history, defeated Portugal. This was the number 49 in the world rankings, defeating number 24, and a historic day for Brazilian rugby. The Crusaders won Super Rugby again this year, and whilst that was about the most heralded result imaginable, it's worth taking a moment to reflect on what this meant. Prior to Scott Robertson, being appointed their head coach, nobody had ever won Super Rugby more than twice in a row. Not only has Razor Robertson now done that, he's now won the thing 7 bloody times on the bounce, an unbreakable record that will probably never be beaten. And speaking of unbreakable records, how about this? The first ever top 14 full house from the bench. Toulouse's Baptiste Germain came on with 14 minutes to play and his team 8 points behind and quite literally did everything he could to turn that around. A penalty swiftly followed by a try to equalise and then a conversion to take the lead before knocking over a cheeky drop goal to seal both the game and his record in one fell swoop late on. A swoop not dissimilar to this amazing moment of Eben Etzefeft against Quinn, a stoop swoop if you will, or Racing's glorious match de mascots here, some of the most high quality rugby of the year. And speaking of, back to the quarterfinals, we have Fiji's incredible comeback. With England rolling into total control of the game and the Flying Fijians looking rudderless in their biggest game in 16 years, suddenly something shifted in that second half. An incredible flurry of scores getting them not just back in the game but ahead. Momentum entirely on their side and England scrambling, rush, no idea what's going on, and eventually requiring a late drop goal from Owen Farrell to sneak through into the semis. And speaking of wriggling into the next round. Next, it's the moment, if I'm completely honest and just embrace my biases, would stand as my personal number 1. 13 years after last making the European knockout rounds, only sneaking into the competition this year as the lowest ranked side in the entire tournament, my club, the Ospreys, relit an old flame as they arrived at Welford Road to take on one-time bitter rivals, Leicester Tigers, who were now back to claim their rightful place as English champions after another long wait. What followed was an incredible spectacle, a back and forth test intensity battle between clubs boasting half the England and Wales 15s. Ospreys striking first and Tigers taking control of the entire game, only for Ospreys to swing it back round. A counter-attack try by Keelan Giles and an unbelievable try-saving tackle by Michael Collins, keeping them in the fight, setting things up before the Tigers snuck back ahead and then took another penalty, getting them 6 points up in order to set up the most dramatic last play club rugby saw this year as the Ospreys looked for the try to nail their first ever win at Welford Road and the first by a Welsh team since 1996, as well as their first knockout place in a decade. 4 disallowed tries in the last few minutes, 13 minutes of overtime and some unreal scrummaging giving the Ospreys the chance. Man of the match, Jack Morgan, sneaking over, giving his 10, a former Tiger himself, Owen Williams, the chance to nail the game. The Ospreys' biggest win in a decade, something noted as the kick goes over by head coach Toby Booth, by me losing my mind in the stands. I genuinely think this is the loudest I've ever been in my life watching that kick go over. 3 people came over and shook my hand for it, and prop/Elvish aficionado Reese Henry in the dressing room right after. It's probably higher than it deserves to be, but for me this was the biggest, most personally meaningful and emotionally charged rugby moment I've had since Dan Biggar kicked the ball out at Twickenham in 2015. And it took some resistance and, let's be honest, some fighting to keep this away from the top 10. At 37, Antoine Dupont with a brilliant cross kick, of a freak, of a bloody, incredible, bloody Antoine thing against Namibia. At 36, a lovely moment as Poland win a Rugby Europe Championship match for the first time ever, upsetting Belgium to create the biggest day in their rugby history ever. The superb goal kicking of Wojciech Pietrovic and 2 tries by Peter Zeskotek and Zenon Sagwazak winning them the day. This is an aged Poland team who've worked incredibly hard over many, many years, and to see them take to this standard of European rugby and now start to compete is incredible. It's the story of a lifetime. And it's an effort matched by these 3. Wales and Scotland played out a brilliant, tight, compelling game in this year's Six Nations. Every time Wales looked to get in control, Scotland, and specifically Chloe Rowley, providing the magic to keep them going, keep them in the fight. Until here, a Scotland scrum with 1 minute left on the clock, and Wales are starting front row 79 minutes into the game, giving the shove of their lifetime. One big last effort, blowing Scotland off their own ball for scrummer Fionn Lewis to go over and score the winning try. But the moment on this list isn't Lewis's try itself. It's this. The trio of them walking off after that scrum. Replacements left to play out the final 90 seconds, so the starting front row could have the warmest, happiest, most satisfied coach on the sidelines. Here's an utterly extraordinary conversion.
Staff pay 133. It's crazy. It wasn't going over. No. It's just like somebody doing that. He's kicked it over. So conversion given.
But then just when you think, I've never seen that before, it happened twice this year! It happened twice in the same year! One kick that couldn't be charged, however, came here in the URC knockouts against their biggest rivals on the road and completely unfancied. Munster survived almost a miraculously long Leinster attack and found themselves somehow magically down the other end. And in that moment, the second the field position took, every player became possessed by the spirit of Ronan O'Gara, Paul O'Connell, the entire old school gang, as the most Munster thing ever happened. Jack Crowley in the pocket, nailing an incredible drop goal to knock out the favourites and get Munster in contention for a moment that might be higher up the list. At 32, man in the box, amazing blind kick against Scotland. What a kick this was, what a moment this was. And at 31, dog on the pitch! Man steps the dog! Man steps the dog! At 30, I'll hand it over to Jamie Lyle here.
Sexton trickles it down for Els to chase. Taken instead by Valvassa. Valvassa bursting through. Rupano on his inside shoulder. First blood, Romania. The mighty Oaks stand tall in Bordeaux. This is the stuff of Romanian dreams. They lead the best team in the world.
Romania didn't have much to celebrate this World Cup, but that was it. A moment these players will never forget. But Samoa almost went one better. For a mad 20 minutes during this World Cup, Nigel R. Wong was the best rugby player on the planet, as the Islanders played some sensational rugby against England, a controversial disallowed try, and a late score by Danny Kerr, allowing England to get in the lead. But that shouldn't take away from the effort, energy, and incredible skill at Samoan side, and yet it still almost came so close to coming good. One of the greatest breakouts the game saw this year, leaving Samoa one sharper offload away from creating one of rugby's all-time great moments, the win just slipping away from them at the last second. At 28, an emotional night in Cardiff. It's hard to quite sum up what Life President Peter Thomas meant to the people of Cardiff Rugby Club. One of the kindest, most generous, and most passionate men in all of Welsh rugby, Thomas saved the club from the brink of oblivion numerous times, keeping them trading and playing for years with his millions from being a big pie selling man as Wales. Decades of financial backing and undercard to a lifetime of impassioned, heartfelt support and kindness from the stands, and the warmest friendship of everyone involved in the club to everyone who played any part in his beloved team, be they staff, administrators, players, coaches, or supporters on a Saturday. Thomas passed away this year, just a few days before Cardiff were due to play their biggest game of the season, a European knockout match against in-form top of the Premiership Sale Sharks. And for the first time in some 50 years, Cardiff played a home game and Peter Thomas wasn't there. And it felt like this.
Thank you so much, Conor. Diolch yn fawr.
A deyrnged i'r diweddar Peter Thomas.
An emotional crowd, an emotional team, and an openly crying head coach and close friend of Thomas, Di Young, who managed to help his team channel their energy into a really special night. Cardiff played with an impassioned, meaningful edge. Thomas's entire family in the stands to feel the thousands mourning with them. The game was always close, but the win was never in doubt. A number of Cardiff men playing almost career-best performances, or at least season-defining games, and all done for Peter, a man who meant the world to the city and the team he loved. At 27, a moment a million neutrals fell in love. Japan were heroes last time, but as they took on Chile in their 2023 opener, they lived long enough to see themselves become the villain. And whilst the Blossoms came out on top, that wasn't how things started. This fantastic breakout move allowing star player Rodrigo Fernandez to flick up to himself and dive over in the corner to put Chile in front in their first ever Rugby World Cup match against a quarter-finalist from 4 years prior. Chile were just a delight to watch this World Cup, but this was the best bit of it all. Competing with a Tier 1 team for so long, for an hour of the game, and showing the world what they can do with the ball in hand. Though bonus mention does have to go to their try against local rivals, which they can now call themselves rivals, Argentina in Nantes. And speaking of rivalry, France had a hell of a moment in the W15 this year. Almost 1 year to the day after losing by 1 point in the semi-final of the Rugby World Cup. The 15 de Feminine de France struck back, struck early, and held the hell on as they exacted revenge with a 1-point win to end the Black Ferns' 16-game winning streak that saw them become world champions and defeat them in New Zealand for the first time ever. A historic result, yet nowhere near as big as the scenes at Twickenham a couple of months earlier as Fiji announced their World Cup intentions as they took on an England team, turning up expecting an easy ride. This would be an easy 30-point win. They'll just blitz through it. A few players might, make it easy for them to include in the World Cup squad. Nothing really to it. Instead, Fiji took them to places they'd never been before. Incredible Fijian flair, accuracy with the boot, and an all-court game thanks to the inspiration Simon Raiwa-Lui leading Fiji to not just their first ever win at Twickenham, but their first ever win over England, end of. Just an incredible, incredible island day. But a very different sombre English moment at 24, as Sarah Hunter, England's most capped player of all time, and up there with Martin Johnson as the best captain they've ever had, finally called time on her career in a match played in front of her hometown of Newcastle. The first time she'd ever had the privilege of wearing white, of playing for a country there. I reckon she'd probably worn white on her own terms in her hometown. Just a hunch. And these were the beautiful scenes as the city celebrated its proudest rugby daughter and a nation said goodbye to a girl.
Sarah Hunter's rugby career is over. Kingston Park rises, English rugby rises, the whole rugby family rises to recognise one of the greats. 16 years, 141 caps. Sarah Hunter, thank you.
Sticking with the crowds, it's a very different yet deeply significant moment right here at the start of the 2023 Rugby World Cup. After an opening ceremony that hyped the hell out of the crowd, now baying for all black blood and jumping up and down singing that one banger, banger they played all World Cup long, there was just one more formality they had to get through first. Opening speeches from Sentient Bag of Ham and Chairman of World Rugby, Bill Beaumont, and President of France, Emmanuel Macron. You can say perhaps not the two most popular men of the French rugby public. The atmosphere in the stadium changed in a heartbeat. The crowd launched into booed, hisses, jeers, jests, chants. Beaumont was drowned out by the entire crowd, left floundering and unsure, not able to get a single word out. I was in that crowd and you couldn't hear a single word that he said. And then Macron steps up and the boos got even louder, audible from the high heavens. A dramatic show, a huge moment, as the sharpest turn I've ever felt in atmosphere anywhere, never mind just a rugby crowd, took place. It was so drastic, so dramatic. At the final, World Rugby didn't even introduce the pair as they handed out the medals to prevent a boo-based backlash all over again. At 22, here's one of the best tackles you ever see from that rapscallion Tony Dupont. Honestly, what's he like? Carrying Matt Hansen back as he's going over the try line in the highlight of an utterly brilliant first half of rugby at the Fever in February. Honestly, one of the best halves of Six Nations rugby you'll ever see, yet he never got better than bloody Antoine's tackle here. What a player, man. At 21, dog on the pitch! Dogs on the pitch! Yeah! Dog. Into the top 20. And what a night this was. England's dodgy form entering the World Cup had pundits, panels, and pumas alike. Sure, a South American slaughterhouse was waiting for them. But then, right as things started to look ominous with Tom Curry off the field for a red card and Boffelli finding his feet and his range, up steps George Ford. A heroic, inspirational, incredible hat-trick of drop goals, turning England's fortunes around so single-handedly, so dramatically. They powered on the wave he inspired all the way to the third place medal. And I had to go for long lie down on my own, darkened room, nobody watch. Seeing England shift into shithouse DG heel mode was dramatic, but seeing Ford turn himself from class attack mastermind management man to the best kicking fly half in the world on a dime was something else. Just a brilliant moment of drama, of occasion, and of World Cup rugby above anything else. At 19, cow on the pitch! Every year, we allow one rugby league moment on, and there was no doubt over this year's ad. Special mention for Ospreys flanker Harry Deaves' response, cow on the pitch. At 18, a special moment for the league now known as Premiership Women's Rugby, and the Premier 15s, and for one of England's proudest old rugby clubs. Over the last few years, Gloucester, the town, and Gloucester Rugby, the club, have really embraced their women's programme. The investment, both emotional and financial, flowing through the circus, as they call themselves, and they started to draw bigger and bigger crowds and play more and more of their games at their men's ground, Kingsholm. And so, with the final set to be played there anyway, the team set themselves alight and watched themselves just burn through everybody else. No one coming close as they top the table, firing through to the showpiece game and letting the town and the club do the rest. Renamed for the day to Queensholm, a packed crowd watched as Flaky George left no string unpulled and the pack no ruck unturned until the moment came. Exeter getting back in the game before Lisa Neumann over to seal it. The shed erupts. Gloucester Hartbury had done it. A trophy lift came shortly after, but the real icing on the cake was this: the ever infectious joy of Mo Hunt, as after years of signing shirts for members of the crowd, she asked the crowd instead to sign hers, so she could forever remember the support she felt on this special day forever. And now over to the opening weekend of the World Cup, which kicked off in some style with the biggest game of the entire pool stage up first, as host nation France took on the tournament's most successful side ever, the All Blacks. One of the great atmospheres engulfed Stade de France as Dupont's team of terrors withstood an initial All Black onslaught to take control of the game. Damien Penaud and Melvin Chaminet's tries whipping a nation into Les Bleus frenzy that then made it impossible to feel like anyone else could ever lift that trophy in mid-October. We'll see how that one goes. And yet the tournament only got better 2 days later as Wales took on Fiji in Bordeaux. A brilliant clash of styles as Wales kicked, tackled and mauled their way into a lead before the Fijian flair took over the game once again. Took it just by the scruff of the neck as they fought their way back in. Captain Waisaionaisa Levu, one of the most beautiful men to never utter the words 10 siblings, outstanding as it all built to this: the final passage. Fiji in total control, pulling a desperate Cymru team left and right, barely able to hang on, making tackle after tackle as they had all game, stretched thin enough, tackling everything that moved with everything they had until it came. A pass floated in the air for an age. The longest month of my life sat in that corner as Semi Randrandra, one of the best rugby players on the planet, waited line at his mercy to score the winner. But as the world watched, the world waited. He dropped it. Wales won. and Bordeaux erupts. Stereophonics and Max Boyce belt from the stands as both sides leave the ground proud. 60,000 spectators thoroughly thrilled. Shout out, by the way, to the French-based Welsh lady a few seats down from me who said she'd never been to a rugby match before but had been on her bucket list for decades. She picked one hell of a way to start. And so, to the 2023 Six Nations. The opening day christened by drama as Steve Borthwick's England stuttered at their first hurdle. Scotland retained the Calcutta Cup, thanks in no small part to World Rugby's 2023 Try of the Year. Duhan van der Merwe's incredible solo effort, a score made to be shown by Scottish fans to their kids, their grandkids, their nieces, nephews, strangers in the street for decades to come. Seriously, every single child in the borders is going to be shown that try the moment they reach their critical age that they start to ask questions about that weird shaped egg thing. And another such moment occurred a few months later as Munster, the proud province on the end of a decade plus dry spell, went full Munster. Munster, more than any other club in the world, are forged in adversity, built on history and live as a mythology. And their run to the 2023 URC title personified this club beautifully. Sneaking into the knockouts thanks to some upset results at the end of the regular season, a first ever win in South Africa for one. They were handed the most difficult task possible, an away game against their most hated overseas side, which would be followed, if they won, by an away game against their biggest rivals, Glasgow Warriors and then Leinster. Two sides with incredible home records, and yet Munster went to Glasgow and they won, and then they went to Leinster and, as previously mentioned, won. This gave them a shot, a chance at glory, a long shot, but a shot nonetheless, a trip to South Africa to play defending champions, the Stormers, in Cape Town for the title. And whilst Miney the Bok put the local side in control early on, in true stand-up and fight fashion, Munster never gave in. Led by King Shithouse Peter O'Mahony and inspired by young flanker John Hodnett, built to Hodnett's man-of-the-match performance being capped off in the 75th minute as he went over to put the boys in red ahead. A heroic 5 minutes then concluded an incredible run before the ball out and Munster crowned champions. Before it got even better as team dad Peter O'Mahony stood watch as his boy Hodnett gave this man of the match into.
The player of the match, the final. Very well done, very well played. A great win for you guys, no doubt.
Yeah, look, fuck, it's some win in fairness, like, you know, we've had it tough there the last few weeks. We've been on the road non-stop.
Number 13, Twickenham, March 11th, 2023. The day France went Super Saiyan. Unplayable, unbeatable, uncontainable. One of the best performances by any test team this year is Fabien Galtier's side put over a decade of ghosts to bed, which takes a long time. We ever tried to put one ghost to bed? Never mind a decade of them. Bloody so many ghosts. Not just winning a Six Nations game at Twickenham for the first time since 2005, but inflicting upon England their biggest ever loss at home. 53-10. A scoreline that flattered England as Labeler took control, and Roman Untamak did this. You missed that guy. At number 12, here's a try from the Curry Cup that just keeps getting better and better.
The pressure of the Bulls now telling, but Devin Williams trying to keep this movement alive. De Klerk beats his man with the goose step. Back on the inside to Apollos. It's spectacular rugby. And here is Snyman. Bulls players all around. Oh, huge hit on Kleinhans. But they're keeping it alive again. Mkajima with brilliant play. No, here is Mkajima. That was Apollos. He hangs it onto the boots. The bounce for Stuckling. Inside ball! For sure!
Just in case you weren't counting, here it is again, 17 passes, 2 kicks, and virtually every single player in the team handling the ball. Maybe the best rugby of 2023. But as this shit was going on, something very different was happening back in France. We'll go back there. As the entire nation stopped still, following one tackle from Namibia captain Johan Dezel. As Antoine went down, holding his cheek, the entire country took one deep collective breath. Dupont's injury was perhaps the moment of the pool stage, at least for the host nation. For the 2 weeks after, updates on Dupont's health were not just the back page sports section stuff. It was the main headline in the French news, the front page of every newspaper, the only topic on people's lips. I wasn't in New Zealand for Carter's injury in 2011, so I'm not sure I've ever experienced anything quite like it. An entire nation on pause, waiting to hear if Antoine Dupont was okay. Millions researching cheek doctors and experts being flown in from anywhere and everywhere, worldwide, to get him back and get him fit again, ready for those quarterfinals. It was an atmosphere around an entire nation I'll never quite forget. You went town to town and people were still talking about Dupont's bloody cheek. It was really something different, but one that leads actually quite neatly on to the top 10, because it's time for the greatest rugby moments of the year.
Dupont salió de punta Seuteni. Compró Seuteni, va Tamac. Y Tamac tiene campo para correr y adentro lo tiene Dupont. No va a ser necesario. Tamac que va. Trae. De Toulouse. ¿Qué puede significar el campeonato? Encontró los espacios en la apertura. España, que hace un ratito nomás había tenido en su pie la oportunidad y la había desperdiciado. De esto se trata.
Oh, I'll say it again. How I missed him. From narrowly missing touch a few moments earlier on what could have given Toulouse the position for the winning try, to this. Untermack taking it in from his own half to win the top 14 for Toulouse. 1948, 2009, 2018. Irish rugby had only ever won their greatest domestic prize, the 4, 5 or 6 Nations Grand Slam, 3 times. Belfast, Cardiff and Twickenham have been the destinations for nights of green-tinted drinking, but in 2023, the retiring Jonathan Sexton, oh my god, that feels so weird to say, am I allowed to say that? In his final competitive match at the Aviva Stadium, where he plays so many of his great games, lifted the Grand Slam trophy aloft in Dublin, making the first Irish captain to ever do so. Ireland started out nervy but sprung into action. Dan Sheehan at his best as his boys in green beat the old enemy as emotions returned to the fore the closer the final whistle got. A really meaningful night for Irish rugby. The end of an era and the start of the next. And a record they've so far been proud of just sliding away and fading into obscurity being smashed, destroyed, as they claimed dominion of Northern Hemisphere rugby and gave 2 separate generations of players days they'll define their careers by. Rugby World Cups are built on big moments. The knockouts demand them, but just getting there, especially as an underdog nation, requires at least one of those. Fiji had come close against Wales, but faced with Eddie's Australia, they went up a gear. The Fijian flair was present, yes, but what we saw was a heartfelt, impassioned, battling team. The heart of the nation winning the day instead of their God-given talent or hard-wired, explosive tactics. Unlike in 87 and 2007, their 2 previous quarter-final teams, Fiji went beyond the pools with a performance that made them look like it wasn't an upset at all. The loudest giant slaying of the entire year, achieved in a manner that made it seem like regulation. Simon Raiwalui's team loving every second afterwards as the island lost its mind with their boys doing them proud once again. Games. One of the highest intensity clashes ever played. A final in the pool stage. All topped off by a hair-raising moment to crown it. One that will forever stay in your head. It became an easy and fun gag to just mock England. A loss to Fiji slaughtered by Wales and an initial implosion against Argentina had them written off. Then George Ford's wind firmly wafted into their sails and Farrell back to his best no matter what people say. They squeezed into semi-finals with a plan in mind. A near flawless plan devised months in advance to down the mighty Springboks. And my god, it was magnificent to watch. A kicking game with drop goal backing, nullifying the box completely. South Africa strangled in the kind of way they normally only get to watch others suffer at their own hands. It was a brilliant kind of countering of what the Springboks have been doing for 4 years now. Fossilised prop Dan Cole scrummaging extraordinarily well, and the Boks left without a hope. Only for 2 things to happen, 2 inspired moments of management from coaches Rassie Erasmus and Jacques Nienaber. First, Andre Pollard replacing Manny Lebok in the first half. A brilliant moment of drama that sat in the stands you could feel go round England South Africa fans alike. But then the moment that really turned the game. As the finite resource that is Cole ran out, on came opposite Kyle Sinclair, the not so endangered species that is the ox. And Shea saw South Africa's scrum take control and slowly the game started to turn. Arthur Snyman scoring to get them back within a point, and then just moments later on the halfway line itself, another scrum forced to set. The referee sticks his arm out. The penalty comes. And Andre Pollard, having come on in that first half, not in the initial squad for the World Cup, for a second tournament in a row, suddenly has a 77th minute kick to put his team in the Rugby World Cup final.
From 49 metres to win this semi-final. Andre Pollard sends it through!
He nails it. A moment never in doubt, because you know who this is. It's Andre goddamn Pollard. It was one of the great finals. In front of the home crowd, a seemingly unstoppable Leinster got out to a 17-0 lead in just minutes. A brilliant flurry of free tries and a blistering burst to that first half. And yet, as the game rolled on and things started to slow down, La Rochelle just didn't give it in. A try by France centre Jonathan Dante got things going, but the gears only started to chime up. Gears don't do that, whatever. From the second half, Samoa's Yuja Suteni tearing it up, and Anthony Hastoy on brilliant form as the defending champions pulled themselves back into the game just through any means necessary. Sheer blood and grit, getting them into a position to score to put themselves in the lead at last after 72 minutes. But Leinster weren't done as we played out a brilliant final 8 minutes. The boys in blue unable to set for a drop goal properly as French physicality denied the home team their much prized, much chased 5th star for another year at least, and hence one of the finest finals in European Cup history, giving us one of the tournament's most remarkable winners in a La Rochelle team who simply didn't know how to lose. It was the dreamers against the legends. The world #1 against history's #1 team. A side seeking their greatest day ever versus one looking to avoid one that might rank amongst their worst. Ireland ready, fired up, and filled with decades of brewing hope. Sure, today was the day that it happened, as they faced the All Blacks, a side they embarrassed at home last year and had had full 18 months of just thinking and stewing on what they did to them. All this set in the quarter-finals of the Rugby World Cup. One of these teams would be going home. And what we witnessed as both teams tried to avoid that fate was as good a game as has ever been played in this goddamn sport. After generations of jokes about bottling it on the big occasion, Ireland truly turned up in a quarter-final for arguably the first time ever, playing one of their best games of the Andy Farrell era, which has been a pretty excellent era. They just happened to be facing an All Black side who spent a year dreaming, drooling about nothing but this game, this chance to embarrass Ireland just as they did at home, desperate for revenge, hoping to prove their worth against the team that showed them up in front of their own fans 1 year ago. Ireland were fantastic, but the All Blacks were even better. Sam Cane having maybe the best game of his career, and Ardie Surveyor alongside him, putting in maybe the best performance by any individual player of the last 4 years at least. Honestly, one of the best performances a rugby player's ever put in, I've certainly ever seen. And it all eventually, after so much drama, came down to one epic, elongated, endless final play, maybe the tensest passage the sport's ever seen, never mind just this year. Every single tackle counting, seemingly triple. A single slipped finger or twitched knee could change a nation's mood for months in rugby history forever. And eventually, after some heroic defence and fearless attack, the legend ruined the dream. Sam Whitelock, just days after he became the most capped All Black in history, just the second man to ever play 150 internationals, produced maybe the most important moment of any of them. A game for the ages between two teams who both would have been worthy winners of not just the day, but the entire tournament, and one that should be spoken about amongst the greats for a very, very long time. But let's stick with the greats, because the final day of the pool stage saw one of the great upsets, one of the great winning tries, one of the great occasions, and one of the great moments for developing nations in all of rugby. I'm talking, of course, about
o jogador português David Walsh. Agora novamente Rafael Storti tem que passar e aí está, vai ser o ensaio.
E o Marta merecia este ensaio mundial.
Suntuoso, magnífico e não tenho mais adjetivos no meu dicionário. Claro.
Rafael Storti and Rodrigo Marta combining in the finale of maybe the best game of the pool stage, certainly top two, to give Samuel Marks the chance to put them ahead.
Samuel Makish just strikes it superbly. He's put Portugal in front.
It was a wild game, an incredible match, and an even better occasion. Portugal had never won a Rugby World Cup match. They qualified for just the second time ever. Portuguese players and fans alike leaving after Marx's kick in tears. Decades of dreaming and years of hard work leading to this, the moment they slayed the giant slayers Fiji. Portugal, the lowest ranked team and last side to qualify, gave us the tournament's biggest upset and set their future in the game on a firm course that only World Rugby continue to ruin and gatekeep the World Game from them, and the Six Nations Series I mentioned as well, from them could possibly ruin. But that's a conversation for another night, because this day, the last day of the pool stage, was all about this win, this result, and this team. A day that was purely Portuguese. I've now had 2 or so months to think on this, and honestly, if we set all biases and discourse aside, I think the 2023 Rugby World Cup quarter-final between France and South Africa might be the best game of rugby I've ever seen. The occasion, the hosts against the defending champions, was primed for drama always, but there's a decent chance we were looking at a de facto title decider as well. The date with destiny that may just guide its winner to the Webb Ellis Trophy. And so we got a game that lived up to that. Never mind a knife, this game was balanced on a paper spoon. Peter Bogdanovich's most disappointing movie, I'd say. We've seen tight games before, we've seen high-scoring games before, but this was a match of exceptional quality the entire way throughout. Not the sort of game where you say defence is optional. It bloody wasn't. It was ferocious, and yet everyone overcame it. The first half, bolstered by a fit-again Antoine Dupont, saw France look irresistible at times, like they were going to win it by 50, and yet the Springboks rise to every occasion and looked like no one was ever going to pass them, and they were never going to let up. The back and forth of scores was electric, overwhelming, barely a break in play and scarcely an error unforced. Every single player having at least an 8 out of 10 day, with a few having, 9s and bloody Etzebeths having a 10, as they played for their shot at history. 2023 hasn't always been the easiest year for rugby or the easiest year to follow it, but when games like this are on the table, it's hard not to be as in love with it as you always ever most have been, and also lose how to talk when you're talking about it. Skill, drama, tension, physicality, power, pace, and a fascinating, phenomenal tactical battle that somehow ended in the most dramatic result possible. France, the host nation and tournament favourites, crashing out, and the Springboks surviving, aware they've been through it the hard way, but knowing what was to come. The game was just something else. One worth marvelling at, watching back, celebrating, championing, discussing, and remembering for so long as this game goes on. Why do we watch sport? There are those who fool themselves into thinking it's some sort of fascination with the finest athletes or impressive physical feats, but I think deep down we all know that's never really been it. We watch sport for the drama, for the payouts from a lifelong, ongoing emotional lottery we enter every Saturday. And beyond that, we watch it to be a part of something. We watch it for the drama, emotion, and the way it pulls us all together. And it's hard to think of anything in the modern history of rugby union that captured those feelings and bottled them better than South Africa winning the 2023 Rugby World Cup. Where 2019 was talked about as a moment to bring South Africa together, in 2023 we saw it in action. The everyday folk of South Africa's interest was piqued by proceedings in Japan. A nation felt inspired by Makazole Mpimpi, fell in love with Cheslin Kolbe, adopted Faf de Klerk as our little prick, understood why those guys are so into physical freaks when they watched the Beast and Co scrum, and then looked to their glorious leader, looked to their captain, and saw not some blood-eyed, blonde, chiselled from granite like Springbok captains of past, but a generous, loving, thoughtful, hard-working, hard-playing, hard-fighting, hard-speaking wonderman who lived through every wrong their country could provide, and yet found it in his soul to instead embody the best of his nation's spirit, to become a beacon not for what South Africa has perhaps been, but what it can be and what it shall be, if he had any say, if we all fight and believe like Siya does. In 2023, those folk who casually tuned in 2019 had, over the 4 years in between, become fully signed up members of the emotional lottery, coming together to watch every game, to feel every game, to feel as though they played, and boy, did the box put them through it. Every single match a tussle, but every single match, this team came together and delivered for the people back home. Something the team, the coaches, and most of all Siya Kolisist himself reminded us at every opportunity. This was for the folk waiting, screaming a million miles away, feeling like they were playing. It was a brilliant final. Tense, tight, back, forth, full of the kind of drama and emotion we always want, we expect from the big occasions. But the second, the moment the clock went red and Wayne Barnes' final whistle blew, it became something else. Something more. A moment of togetherness, celebration. The emotional lottery had delivered its ultimate prize. The triple rollover bellowing out across South Africa as Siya Kolisist now stood one podium walk away from cementing his place as the greatest captain the game had ever seen. Not just for his achievements on the pitch, achievements matched only by one other player in history, but for those off them more so. For showing his teammates, his countryfolk, and dreamers in general worldwide what was possible, and for reminding the rugby world why we watch this sport, what drew us to the game, and why this daft little egg thing we watch on weekends matters in a way that no other player in the history of the game has ever achieved just quite as well. It was a moment for the Springboks, yes, it was a moment for South Africa, but it was a moment for all of rugby. Siya Kolisist lifting the Webb Ellis Cup for a historic second time on an unforgettable night for South Africa and the game at large is undoubtedly, undisputedly, the rugby moment of 2023. Thank you for watching that. Thank you for getting to the end of that. That was quite an undertaking for us to make, and I imagine an undertaking for you to watch. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had a lovely time with that. This has been a year-long, year-round project the entire year.
I, the rugby elf, have partaken in editing that as well.
And me as the rugby. So, yeah, thank you. As I say, we start January 1st each year in the moments of the year and keep going, keep piling through all the way until obviously a few days before Christmas. It's currently 2 a.m. on December 21st and we've just finished the bastard. So thank you for watching that. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it stays up. If you're a member of World Rugby, please consider the Christmas spirit in your heart. And yeah, Team of the Year coming next week, starting the final weekend of the year. We'll run through, again, as ever, 6 days, 6 videos, running by kind of groups of position, back three coming first. For the Team of the Year, that's up next. And then there'll be more stuff in the new year. All kinds of new look, new exciting, silly, wonderful rugby nonsense.
Remember, if you want to remove this video, this is who you're removing the video from. And if you want to call the Team of the Year woke, this is who you're calling woke. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
What does rugby mean to you, buddy?
I just love the sport. The physicality side of it's amazing, and just playing with my mates.
It's just about having a little kick about with your friends.